Hey, good morning, friends. Good morning, adventurers. Welcome back to your side quest contact. We're going to continue our little exploration series here, getting into Planescape in a moment. Before we do that, though, wanted to kind of give a brief update just on DMing life and what's going on. Tuesday's session, we have concluded the Frozen Heart adventure. That was a real exciting session. The players were able to defeat the evil queen. Our fairy halfling. I'm sorry, our fairy cleric Maker. I always think she was a halfling, but no, she's a fairy. Maker was able to seize the frozen heart gem and then jewel and then use that to exert her will over the Remhoraz, and yeah, and everyone lived happily ever after, so to speak. But yeah, that was an exciting session. The combat was fierce. A lot of players getting taken down, 2-0 hit points, having to be brought back. A dragon, a rider, a warlock rider on the dragon, the queen herself, and then the Remhoraz comes as after the queen was taken out. So that was exciting. So for that session, someone else is actually going to take over running that game. So I'm excited to be able to play for a little bit. Monday night, the Muse of Jajon continues on. That's going well. We actually ended the last session in a fight. So the next session that we put up, that we play and put up, will start off with some combat. And then, let's see, Wednesday, finished play testing for a friend DM, one of his adventures. And then another DM there is going to take over and run Traveler. So that's a sci-fi based game. So, excuse me. So I'm really excited to play and learn that, and may even bring it over here and talk about it a little bit if I like it, because we're not in this exploration series. We're not just confined to D&D. We're actually going to be looking at some other stuff that I've ran, played, and had a good time. So yeah, a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff happening, a lot of things in the works, and it's an exciting time. So yeah, keep watching. Muse of Jajon still going to be put up. I'm not going to be posting anything from the Tuesday game since I'm not running it, but we're going to continue with Muse of Jajon, and then after that, when that adventure concludes, that me and that group will talk about and decide, all right, what we're going to do next. All right, so a little update on what's going on. So let's continue on with exploring. Now today I want to get into Planescape. This is another one of my favorites, and you may have caught on to the theme that some of my favorites aren't traditional setups, like aren't traditional fantasy settings in a fantasy prime material world. They're a little different, like Ravenloft. It's off in its own little pocket of reality, as is Planescape and all the story and adventure that comes around Planescape. Now, we'll kind of take a similar approach, right? We did with Ravenloft. We're going to start off of where is Planescape. Now, Planescape sits kind of in the center, the literal center of the universe. This city called Sigil hovers above the outer planes, where there are all sorts of denizens, all angels, things out there that are all kind of conglomerating in one place. Now, in this city, it sits in the center of the universe, and there are some features about this city that make it unique to any other city. Now, we'll talk about the city here. So let me come into here and let's take a look at the map. Now, in some ways, Sigil resembles a traditional city. There's a lot that's not traditional. Its layout, for example, think of like a tire, right? A tire on its side, and the city is the inside lining of that tire. It sits on its side. It floats, in the universe, and like gravity orients you so that everything feels like an up and down. But if you looked up, you would see the other side of the inner lining of that tire, and meaning you would see the other parts of that city if you look up. But gravity keeps you oriented, so you're fine. Now you could get to the point where if you fly up, you eventually pass a point where you're no longer flying up, you're falling down, because now you're going to the other side of that city, and gravity kind of reorients you. So Where it is similar to cities, it has wards, right? It's got wards, it's got people, it's got buildings, it's got a government. It's, in those regards, it's a city. The different wards, have, just like a normal city, represent different functions. And we're not going to kind of dive into each of these wards. We're not going to, we're not getting that in depth into it. Another big feature of the city is the portals. Now that's what makes Sigil a very unique city, in the fact that there are portals throughout the city that reach every conceivable point in the D&D universe, multiverse, however you want to label it. So there's a portal to Kryn. There's a portal to Toril. There's a portal to, Gehenna. The portal to Limbo. And one of the storylines is finding a portal, because you got to find the portal, and you got to know how to open the portal. You got to know its key, and that key could vary. It could be a physical object you have to carry. It could be a tune you whistle. It could be a pattern that you blink your eyes, or it could be anything that you can think of that activates that portal and transmits that character to its destination. Some of the portals are one way, some of the portals are two way. So you got to know that before you step into one. If you step into a one way portal, well, may not be getting back, in a timely manner. So finding these portals, getting the keys to these portals, and there are people who guard these portals, right? So if there's an important portal that goes to an important place, there are going to be things that are guarding that portal, because that's how it works. So you got the portals moving that go out to all other parts of the universe, and some that's how some of the people who and the beings who live in Sigil come into the city, through a two-way portal that connects to their world, or their dimension, their realm, whatever that portal connects to. Now, the factions are another important part. There's factions throughout Sigil, and they essentially they also do have a role in the function of the city. And again, I'm not going to. Oops, sorry. And again, I'm not going to go too in depth into each faction, but I want to just kind of look at a couple examples. Let's go back up here. Here we are. Ascendant factions. Sorry, it took a second. Now, each of these factions, starting off with the Athar, they have a philosophy about the universe, and their behavior, their policies, their whole club, if you would, is devoted to promoting that philosophy. Just an example: the Athar here believe that gods are imposters. For all their might, these so-called deities are only mortals who have accumulated enough power to convince the rest of the multiverse that they're gods. With enough time, talent, dedication, anyone could ascend to godhood. And that's kind of true in the D&D universe, right? I mean, that's kind of a lot of story backgrounds are, humans or mortal beings finding ways to ascend to godhood. And we also have a role in Sigil. So what do the Athar do? They gather in the Shattered Temple. Uh, let's see, dedicate Ask a new dead god of portals. Rather than serve in the government, they are a self-appointed spy network who closely survey the city's faiths and the temples, because they're suspicious of the gods, right? Other factions: Bleak Cabal, Doomguard, Faded, and the idea is, if you're playing a Planescape Sigil centralized game, that your players are likely going to belong to one of these factions. They each have a leader. They have a role in what they do in the city. Now, we will take a moment to kind of talk about the governing factions. We got the Fraternity of Order. Those are the lawyers, the courts. Um, we have the Harmonium. They are the police force they enforce peace through might. And then we have the Mercy Killers. They are the jailers, the executioners, the marshals, and bounty hunters. So the fraternity, like if you're charged for a crime, the fraternity order will hear the trial, pass first the harmonium arrests you. They're the if you commit a crime, harmonium spots you, they arrest you, they take you to the fraternity of the order, who will then pronounce judgment, and if you are guilty, you are handed over to the mercy killers for punishment. Their headquarters is the prison, and their theme is all about you can't, if you're part of this faction, you can't protect the universe if you have mercy in your heart. Justice is the only truth of the universe, and having mercy is bad for justice. So they want to kill mercy. So you got these factions, right? And they're all kind of doing their own thing. They got their own agendas, they got their own agents. Player characters are likely members of these, and how you want to set up your players. That's really depends on like the makeup of those players. I would probably have the players like choose like between two to three factions amongst a group, so that not each player has their own faction. Because like if you have for example the Hands of Havoc, right? If you have one player who's in the Hands of Havoc, who's all about anarchists, freedom fighters, chaos, no control, and then you have another player who's in the Fraternity of the Order, who's all about law, order, and control, you can have some issues there. So I would like in my session zero, if I were starting a fresh Planescape game, in my session zero, I would have my group of players. Hey, let's pick a couple of these factions that you as a group belong to. Two of you might belong here, two of you might belong here, but we don't want any factions that clash because it's not going to be conducive to productive game. Players are going to be wind up opposing each other. Now, a lot of these factions have work with other factions. We talked about the law and order aspect. For the Harmoniums, the police; Fraternity of the Order are the judges; Mercy Killers are the jailers, executioners. So they all work close together. Now, the other main thing about Sigil is its ruler. There she is, the Lady of Pain, this enigmatic, omnipotent, and somewhat omniscient figure that lives in this city. No one really truly knows it's the lady's true nature. No one really knows if it's really a lady. This figure moves about the city dressed like this with this very stoic mask, and she is the ultimate enforcer of Sigil. And she has a few laws, not a lot, but she has a few, and uh, very painful things can happen to those who break those laws. Her biggest thing is no gods. Gods, even their avatars, cannot step foot inside a sigil. She's also banned sigil from archangels and demon lords, devil lords. Not like a pit fiend, but maybe like a lord of a layer of hell. You know, like Zariel herself could, the lord of the first layer of hell cannot come into sigil, but maybe her pit fiend general could. So yeah, because in sigil you might find a pit fiend hanging out with an angel, talking about universal issues and discussing philosophical differences. And while they're in this city, they're maintaining a level of peace enforced by this Lady of Pain. She does not tolerate disruptions to the city, but that doesn't mean she stops every mugging. She doesn't stop every stabbing in the street. She is there to protect the city as a whole. So no gods can come into the city. She also has ultimate power over the portals. She can shut them down. Throughout Sigil's history, she has shut them down so no one can come in, no one can go out until she's resolved whatever she wants to resolve. So she can shut down those portals with just a thought. She can close them, change them, create them. She has that power in the city, and sometimes she does that. A faction might be guarding a portal that they've discovered. They have it's theirs, and then the lady shuts it down for some reason. And really no one knows why. It's her reasons, and she doesn't really talk to anyone. Now, another big rule is, she does allow temples, she allows clerics, and she allows worship in her city, but she doesn't allow the gods themselves to come in here or their avatars. And she forbids worship of her. Like anyone who tries to set up a religion or a cult dedicated to her, they're like flayed alive. Like she does not like that. Again, no one knows why. No one really knows her motives, but that's how she is. And as long as you're not trying to disrupt the nature of the city, you're not trying to somehow scheme to bring a god into the city, then yeah, you're likely not to incur her wrath. So we got the Lady of Pain, we've got the portals, we've got the factions. All these features is what really makes up a cool Planescape game. And the fact that you can go to almost any spot in the universe, so you as the DM want to think about where do I want to run an adventure. Okay. Now there's a lot of adventure itself in the city, right? And really the key currency in the city is the portals, right? Knowing the locations. So finding a portal, guarding a portal, taking over a portal, the factions, the people in the city, that's kind of one of the things they scheme over. The factions themselves have their own agendas, so as the players are a member of that faction, if you're keeping your adventure in Sigil, and again, there's a lot to do in Sigil, you don't have to go out to all these other planes, there's a lot to do here. And if you want to keep that in the city, then you got factions vying against each other for various reasons. And this would be a truly urban setting because there's nowhere to go. You're in the city, and that's one of the reasons they call it the cage. Yeah, there are portals that go in and out, but you can't leave the city unless you use a portal. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. The Lady of Pain prohibits any kind of spell casting to get out of the city. Plane shift won't work. I mean, it'll work, but it'll just put you in another spot in the city. So people with plane shift can use it. They often use it to go to zip to other parts of the city itself, because no teleportation or transportation magic can get you out. Only the portals. And likewise, no magic can get you in. Only the portals. So now the 5e source does come out with the did come out with the Outlands. That's kind of like the true neutral land. See, okay, here's a good image. Here, check it out. Yeah, see, that's kind of what Sigil looks like. That little spiral up there, that little city, and it floats over what they call the Outlands. The Outlands is the true neutral land, and each of these outer planes is connected to an alignment, from lawful good, chaotic evil, and so forth, all around the wheel. But there's a lot of good stuff in Sigil itself. So now, if you could have little side quests that involve finding a portal, going to another plane, getting something, coming back. Maybe there's a ticking clock because maybe that portal is unstable. Portals, that's another thing. Portals can be unstable. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You don't know. I mean, unless you find out somehow and experiment with it. But that's one of the neat things about that. You as the DM can decide how does this portal behave, and the players have to figure that out. Either they can maybe there's a record of that portal in the Hall of Records, or maybe they just through trial and error and experimentation figure out what the portal's capable of. Because there are some, if there is a known discovered portal in the city, there's likely a record of it in the Hall of Records. So that's another thing that players like to do. Try to go to the Hall of Records and find stuff. So this is high fantasy, right? I mean, you don't get much more high fantasy than a city in the center of the universe that connects to the rest of the universe. Let me just make a quick double check here, see if there's anything else I wanted to bring up. I do want to run a dedicated game of this. I think that covers it. center of the multiverse. Oh yeah, so here's a good image. You got an angel hanging out with this demon. You got this slod thing over here. Looks like he's like talking to an imp or a will o wisp or something. I'm not sure what's going on up here. Maybe it's a fire dancer. But yeah, this is kind of what the city looks like. You know, different entities from all over the multiverse coming here and having to exercise some restraint. Like if these two right here decided to get into a scrap, this demon and this devil, or this angel and this devil here, they got into a scrap, and that scrap, started threatening the stability of the city. They might find themselves victims of the Lady of Pain. Like she's that powerful. And there's no die rolling for this. You know, it's not like the angels and this angel and devil can roll something to resist. No, it just happens because she's omnipotent. All right. Now with the Ravenloft one we actually did that in two parts. So I'm just looking to see if there's anything else I want to talk about with Planescape. I think we covered it. I mean, we could go deeper into each of these things, but I just wanted to give you kind of a surface level, little and a little deeper overview of that. We're not, you know, info dumping every single thing in here. All right, well, that's good. So I think next time, we'll continue on with D&D, but next time I want to get into Spelljammer. Did run a game of this, and I want to, and we'll talk about it. It's got some interesting things. I think there are some areas where it can use a little touching up on. But we had a good time, and there's nothing wrong with taking a system and making tweaks, making changes, and so that you and your players are having a good time. But we'll get into that next time. All right, friends. Well, hey, thanks again for hanging out and spending your time with me, and we'll see you next time. Take care.